as international financial management. Now, see, in this chapter, there is only two things for me to discuss. Otherwise, you learned capital budgeting, discounting of cash flows, right? And in capital budgeting, you were basically evaluating whether to take up a project or not, right? But the thing was, in capital budgeting, whatever sums you solve, the projects were all in India and the cash flows were all in rupees. But now, supposing you are an India company and you are considering setting up a project in US, then the primary cash flow of the project will be in dollars or rupees? Dollars. But you are sitting in India, you will evaluate it in rupee terms, right? Which means, see, earlier for capital budgeting, what you used to do was here, cash flows, PVIF at certain rate, and discounted cash flows, and less initial outflow. This is what you used to do. But now the problem is, this cash flow of yours now will be in dollars, right? And you will have to evaluate it in rupees, which means there will be two new columns which will come in here. One, exchange rate. And once you apply this exchange rate on this cash flow, you will get cash flows in rupees. And then you will apply the discounting rate. But herein comes the second concept. This discounting rate which you will apply, right? Will you apply the rate applicable for dollars or will you apply the rate applicable for rupees? Because dono ka, see, now I'll tell you why. This discounting factor is generally your required rate of return, right? Will the required rate of return be the same whether it's dollar or rupees? How did you calculate the required rate of return? Risk-free? That means your required rate of return dependent on your risk-free rate plus something, right? Now, India mein risk-free rate is 7%. US mein the risk-free rate is 2%, right? So can you say that, boss, I require 8% from this or 11% from this project in India? Can you go to US and go around saying, my required rate of return is 11%? You can't. Log udhar hasenge, bole, kya 11% ki baat kar raha hai? Risk-free is 2%. 2% plus something will amount to maybe 5%, not 11. ये 11 कहां justified था? India, where the risk-free rate itself is 7%. Right? That means the required rate of return from one country is not the same as another. Acha. Now, having said that, let's say India, risk-free rate is 8%, right? And let us say your required rate of return from a project is 12%. Okay. So India. Okay. Now, US, let's say risk-free rate is 2%. So what should be the required rate of return in US dollar terms? India में risk-free return 8% है, so the required rate of return from a project is 12. US में the risk-free rate is 2%. So what should be the required rate of return in US dollar terms? हाँ, एक मिनट, अपना वो सीए का दिमाग दो ही तरफ चलेगा. One is टैक टैक टैक, है ना? या दूसरा कोई दिमाग चलाएगा, सर ये 8% है और ये 12% है, तो मतलब 4% difference, so this should be 6%. Both of these are wrong and we will learn a new concept here, a totally different concept. Okay, in this chapter there are only two things I have to tell you. One is the introduction of two new columns in your calculation, right? And the second is this finding of this applicable required rate of return. Okay, this anyway, finding out this I will explain when I come to that problem, right? But other than that, the normal problems, we just have this. Okay, then of course the third one which I'm going to say is not a concept, it's just a principle. See, if I'm an India based guy and I'm considering setting up a project in US, then I can evaluate the project in two different ways. One, I can evaluate it in dollars itself, right? What will be the cash flow in dollars? Discount it using the rate applicable for dollars and find the NPV. Or I can also do another thing. Convert those dollar cash flows into rupee cash flows, discount it at the rate applicable for India and find the NPV. The first approach, where I do not convert the cash flows into home currency, I straight away use the foreign currency and discount it. That is called as the foreign currency approach of evaluation. And the second approach, where I convert the foreign cash flows into home currency and then evaluate it, it is called as the home currency approach for evaluation. Common sense. Home currency approach matlab you're going to evaluate the cash flows in home currency. Foreign currency matlab you're going to evaluate it in foreign currency. Okay? Chalo. And dono jab evaluate karoge, understand that discounting factors will be different. Okay? And that is what leads us to this concept. Okay, how to find एक रेट दिया है तो दूसरा रेट कैसे निकालने का है. Okay, चलो, we'll see that. But other than this, all you need to now know is techniques of capital budgeting, which is nothing but discounting of cash flows, and two, whatever we learned in Forex. Whatever we learned. Okay, chalo, let's start with the problem straight. Let's do not question 1. I think question 3 is what we need to do first. Question 2. Let's do question 2. Butler Company, a UK company. See this. This is your home country. Is considering undertaking a new project in Australia. So in which currency will your primary cash flow of the project be? Australian dollars. Okay. The project would require immediate capital expenditure of 10 million Australian dollar plus Australian dollar 5 million working capital, which would be recovered at the end of 4 years life. So the project has got 4 years life, which means right now itself I know एक मिनट इसको ना 4 साल का लाइफ है. ठीक है. Okay. The net cash flows expected to be generated from the Australian dollar are 13 million before tax and depreciation. Straight line depreciation over the life of the project is an allowable expense against company tax in Australia, which is charged at 50%, payable at each year. So tax rate is 50%. The project will have zero scrap value. Butler Company will not have to pay any UK tax on the project. See, the project is going to be in Australia. Income will be generated in Australia. Tax will be paid in Australia. And that income will be brought back to UK. Right? They are saying, when you bring that income to UK, there's no tax. Double taxation avoidance hai inke beech mein. Okay? The Australian dollar pound spot rate is 2 and the Australian dollar is expected to depreciate against the pound by 10% per annum. A similar risk UK based project would expect to generate a minimum return of 20% after tax. मतलब यूके में सेम प्रोजेक्ट में बिठाऊंगा तो मेरा रिक्वायर्ड रेट ऑफ रिटर्न इज 20%. फाइन. नाउ इन दिस, सी, you will have one column which will be cash flows in Australian dollars, but you are going to evaluate this in pounds, exchange rate, right? And then you will have another column which would be pounds, which you will discount at 20%, and this should give you बराबर है, यही कॉलम्स है. Okay. Now, what will be the cash flow in Australian dollars? चलो. कितना है फर्स्ट ईयर? हाँ, 4,87,500. How is that? Depreciation over the life. हाँ. एक मिनट. Online, what will be the cash flow? एक मिनट रुको, ये ऑनलाइन टाइगर्स क्या कर रहे हैं? So online people have decided to effectively ignore me. Eh? See, profit before calculating. रुचिता, इतना देर यहाँ पे सबका आ गया. Profit before depreciation and tax. 13 million Australian dollars. These figures are in million Australian dollars. Okay. 13 million less depreciation. What is the capital cost? 10 million. 4-year life. So depreciation is 10 divided by 4. 2.5. This gives me PBT 10.5. Less tax 50%. 5.25. 5.25 is PAT. Add depreciation 2.5. 7.75. How much time does this take? 7.75, 7.75, 7.75, 11.75. Working capital realized. Okay, this is अच्छा 5 है. 4 किधर देखा फिर? अच्छा 4-year life है. अच्छा 5, sorry, 5, which means this would be 12. Okay. Then exchange rate. कितना आएगा exchange rate for 1 year, for year 1? year 1 के लिए. हाँ बताओ क्या रेट होगा year 1 का? इधर रेट क्या बिठाऊं मैं? 0.55. एक मिनट. कैसे किया 0.55? 0.5 स्पॉट है तो 0.5 is what? $1 equals to 0.5 pounds. Point 0.45. $1 is 0.5 and Australian dollar is expected to depreciate. Right? And you could not have applied it on 2. 2 पे apply नहीं कर सकते थे because the quote is of a pound and depreciation given is of an Australian dollar. So you would have to convert that. रुचिता 0.55 कैसे? रुचिता 0.55 कैसे? हाँ हाँ तुम लोग को 2 को कन्वर्ट करके दिया है. राइट. यहाँ पे we have given it the other way around. कन्वर्ट नहीं किया तो यहाँ पे you will have to, if the quote is given in this format, then you will have to convert it and then apply. Okay, आप लोग को क्या दिया है? I don't know what is given there in the 1 Australian dollar 0.5 and Australian dollar is expected to depreciate against the pound by 10%, right? So this would be 1 Australian dollar equals to 0.45. बराबर. 1 Australian dollar equals to 0.405. 1 Australian dollar equals to 0.3645. And 1 Australian dollar equals to 381. Okay, 81. Now, एक minute. Does anyone have this quote in their textbook? This one which I'm marking? एक मिनट. किसी के पास पुराना टेक्स्ट है ना? है ना? Yes. Now, please listen to me carefully. For people who have this quote in the textbook, this figures would still be the same. Ruchita, if you don't, I'm only talking to those people who are having this quote in the books, Australian dollar pound. उनके लिए बोल रहा हूं. You people would have had to convert this quote to a 1 Australian dollar quote, 0.5, and then apply this 10%. So this will give you 0.45 and so on. You should not have done, एक minute, you should not have done this is 2 Australian dollar is expected to depreciate by 10%. That means pound will appreciate by 10%. Remember what we studied in Forex? The quote is of a pound. The depreciation is given of Australian dollar. So you will have to apply this 10% on an Australian dollar quote. Convert the quote and then apply. This is only applicable for those people jinke textbooks mein the quote is in this form. Those who have the new textbook, they would have given the quote directly as $1 equals to 0.5, in which case quote is of an Australian dollar, depreciation is of an Australian dollar, straight away apply it, you get this would still remain the same. Okay. Now it becomes easy. Convert the cash flow into pounds using the exchange rate. Apply the discounting rate of 20%. You should be getting PV of cash flows in pounds less initial cash outflow. बताओ कितना आता है? Less initial cash outflow, and this should give us the NPV. $7.75 into 0.45, 3.4875. मैं 5 में लिख रहा हूँ, ठीक है? मैं I don't know why, but I just wrote it. Not mandatory for you. You could keep it in 2 decimals also. This one, right? I mean, I've just taken 5 for no particular reason. 12.75 into 0.3281, 4.18328. Okay. Discount, and someone gave me, sorry, Ruchita says PV of cash flows 8.73 PV, not NPV, no, Ruchita? $8.7381 PV. Okay. Initial cash outflow कितना होगा? How much is the initial cash outflow? किसको convert करोगे? 10 million plus Australian dollar 5 million, right? Initial cash outflow 15 million Australian dollar at spot rate. £1 equals to 2 Australian dollar. £7.5. Therefore, NPV is 1.2381 pounds. हो गया डन। हो गया ना डन। हाँ ऑनलाइन एवरीवन डन। एक मिनट आई मीन जस्ट फॉर द बेनिफिट ऑफ जिन लोगों के पास ऐसा है, आप लोग को जो द वे यू वुड नीड टू प्रेजेंट इज since the quote given is of pound, but the क्या है appreciation depreciation given is of Australian dollars, we need to convert the quote into an Australian dollar quote and then apply the depreciation. That is 1 Australian dollar equals to 0.5 pounds. Therefore, rate for 1 year is 1 Australian dollar equals to 0.5 minus 10%, 0.405, sorry, 0.45. For 2 years will be 1 Australian dollar equals to 0.45 minus 10%, 0.405, and so on. This is अगर कोट उल्टा done. Huh? Chalo. Now let's look at question number 1. OJ Limited is supplier of leather goods to retailers in the UK and other Western European countries. The company is considering entering into a joint venture with the manufacturer in South America. Okay, now see, how does the concept of joint venture works? You have A, you have B, and these people would create a new entity, which would be the joint venture, in which some part of the capital will be held by A and some part of the capital will be held by B. ये होता है joint venture का concept. Okay. Now, here they are saying the company is considering entering into a joint venture with the manufacturer in South America. So this guy, now let us assign this name. OJ Limited, ये UK वाला बंदा है, and there is a South American manufacturer, right? इसके साथ joint venture है. The two companies each will own 50% of the limited liability JV SA and will share profits equally. 4,50,000 pounds of the initial capital is being provided by OJ Limited. So this guy is providing pound 4,50,000 into the joint venture. अच्छा, अभी जॉइंट वेंचर का क्या है कि अगर मान लो, just presume that an Indian company is entering into a JV with Microsoft. Okay. If Microsoft provides $1 lakh as capital, then the Indian company has to provide 80 lakh rupees as capital. The Indian company can't say you are providing $1 lakh, so I'll provide 1 lakh rupees. Right? Equivalent amount has to be provided. So now here they are saying that OJ is contributing 4,50,000 pounds to the joint venture, which means the South African manufacturer will have to contribute an equivalent amount in South African dollars. So now they are, see this. 4,50,000 pounds of the initial capital is being provided by OJ, and the equivalent in South American dollars is being provided by the foreign partner. The managers of the joint venture expect the following net operating cash flows, which are in nominal terms. Year 1, 2, 3 project से इतना cash flow आएगा. Now, for tax reasons, the company to be formed specifically for the joint venture will be registered in South America. Matlab, this JV will be based in South America, which means the project's primary cash flow will be in South American dollars. Okay. Requirements: assume you are the financial advisor retained by OJ Limited to advise on the proposed joint venture. Now here comes another catch. You are the financial advisor retained by OJ Limited. Meaning, acha, ek minute. Project, there are two ways of evaluating project, of participating in a project. One is you invest directly in a project. Right? Two is you invest in a company which is going to invest in a project. Okay. Now, in the first case, where you are putting money directly into the project, you are going to evaluate the cash flows from the project and see whether it is worthwhile participating in that project. But when you are investing in a company which is going to invest in a project, in that case, you are really not concerned with the cash flows from the project. What are you concerned with? You are concerned with the cash flow that you will get from the company. Because project might be generating hundreds of crores of cash, but if it doesn't give it to you, then what is the point? Right? Now, in this case, you are the financial advisor retained by OJ Limited, and OJ Limited is participating in a joint venture. That means you are going to evaluate how much is the cash flow that OJ Limited is going to get from the joint venture, not how much cash the joint venture is generating. Okay? Okay. Calculate NPV of the project under the two assumptions explained below. Use a discount rate of 18% for both the assumption. Assumption 1. The South American company has exchange controls which prohibit the payment of dividends above 50% of the annual cash flow for the first 3 years of the project, and the accumulated balance can be repatriated at the end of third year. We'll see what this means. And assumption 2, the government of South American country is considering removing all exchange controls and restrictions on repatriation of profits. If this happens, all cash flows will be distributed as dividends to the partner companies at the end of each year. Now, let's talk about the first assumption. Assumption 1. Now, assumption 1, what are they saying? They are saying that the South American country has got restrictions on foreign exchange. And they say that only 50% of the profits can be distributed. Now you'll say that means in year 1, if there is 100 rupee profit, only 50% can be distributed. Now you'll say, sir, what about the remaining 50% then? They're saying at the end of third year. Okay, fine. So assumption 1, when only 50% can be repatriated. Online, able to hear the voice? Yes, okay, chalo. So let's continue. When only 50% can be repatriated. Okay. Now, here, how many years is the project? 3 years is the project. Year 1, 2, 3. Cash flows. Now, the primary cash flow will be in South American dollars. Then possibly we'll have to apply exchange rate on this. Then we would get the cash flow in pounds. Discount this at 18% and get the discounted cash flows in pounds. Now, what will be the primary cash flow in year 1? Kitna? 2,1? It's not 2,125. Divide that 2,125 by 2 again. 1062.5. Why? Why? Only 50% of the profits can be distributed. And उस 50% का भी 50% ही मेरा है. I'm only 50% stake, no? Online, everyone. Right? And because see, you are evaluating this project from behalf of OJ. So you are only concerned whatever cash flow OJ is going to receive, right? Now, 1062.5 is what I will receive in the year 1. But then remember, I'm entitled to another 1062.5, which I will receive in. Now, 1 minute. Any query on this? No? Huh? हाँ हाँ ये देखा ये आएगा इंटरेस्ट क्वेरी आएगा सी 1 मिनट हाँ 1 मिनट एक नॉर्मल बिजनेसमैन would use this money into the business only, right? Which means this would get reflected in the next year's profits also, right? But having said that, there would be sums in this chapter only where they will specifically say that the amount retained is going to be invested and it will earn so much. In such a case, you will have to factor in that additional income. But otherwise, we will just presume that whatever is retained is plowed back into the business and that is reflecting in the next year's profits, right? Okay. So 1062.5, what will be the cash flow for the next year? 1625. That means you will receive another 1625 at the end of 3rd year. And what will be the cash flow for the 3rd year? How much? No, 8350 divided by 2. 8350 divided by 2. Because भैया 3rd year के end पे तो सारा 50% लेके ही आने वाला है, right? So that means there is nothing that 3rd year profit will then again be repatriated sometime else. That means the 3rd year profit will be 4175. That means 686.5. Okay. Now, exchange rate. They have given, no, in this case, forward exchange rate to the pound sterling. So this is 1 pound equals to 10 SA dollars. So 1 pound equals to 10 SA dollars. 1 pound equals to 15 SA dollars. And 1 pound equals to 21 SA dollars. You will convert all this, calculate the present value of cash flows, in pounds less initial cash outflow. How much is it? So you will need to convert it? No, no? This would be NPV. So calculate the NPV. एक minute, before you do this, एक minute, just 1 minute. What about assumption 2? Assumption 2, what are they talking about? No restrictions on repatriation. Now, no restriction on repatriation means here, sorry, 1, 2, 3 cash flows will be what? First year cash flow 2125, right? Second year 3250. You will apply the exchange rate. You will get the cash flow in pounds. PVIF at 18%. Discounted cash flows in pounds. Less initial cash outlay. This will be 450 pounds. And you should get the NPV. Right? So do this both. $83.27. Sonal, this is what? NPV? Okay, 83.27 negative. Right. So that means what would have been the PV just for others' reference? 533.2. Sorry, 366.73. Okay, fine. Ah. So management calculates for 6.7. So then PV of cash flow is 456.7. हाँ चलेगा. Bhakti, note for the exception for the no. No, I won't be giving a note because that rate is only used in one situation, that is extension of contracts beyond the due date. Right. So what you can do is possibly in that question itself, you can circle the 64.28 and just mark saying that this will be used for interest calculation. Because if there were multiple situations where this could arise, then I would have given a note. But there's only one situation where this would arise. और वो आपको solution when you are studying and you are sitting and solving it, even then you will realize, okay, in this case we are using the covering rate. Okay. Is this done? Everyone? Ho gaya? Online? Everyone? Done? All you lazy people of online, just confirm ho gaya hai ki nahi. Can we move to the next problem? तन्मय बड़े देर के बाद बोले तन्मय इधर थे इतना दिन. Okay. चलो. Okay. चलो. Now let's do question 4. 3 we'll do later. 4. An Indian company is planning to set up a subsidiary in US. The initial project cost is estimated to be $40 million. Working capital required is estimated to be $4 million. Variable cost of production 2.5, fixed cost per annum $3 million. Selling price is $10. Production capacity 5 million units. Expected life 5 years. Method of depreciation straight line. Salvage value nil. इसमें the primary cash flow of the project will be in which currency? Dollars. But we will have to evaluate it in rupees. Okay. The subsidiary of the Indian company is subject to 40% corporate tax rate in the US. And the required rate of return on such type of project is 12%. Now, obviously, 12% would be in India. The current exchange rate is 48, and the rupee is expected to depreciate by 3% per annum for the next. आप लोग को क्या दिया है? 48. Okay, ulta diya hai, and they said that it is expected to depreciate. So for those whose rate is given as 0.0028, you can straight away apply the depreciation rate and calculate the rates, right? Okay. The subsidiary company shall be allowed to repatriate 70% of cash flow after tax along with the accumulated arrears of blocked funds at the end of 5 years. Now you see this. Every year cash flow after tax, they will be able to send only 70%. The rest 30% will be retained there. And now they are saying, when will this 30% be given back? At the end of 5 years. Withholding taxes are 10%. Now we'll discuss something about the withholding tax. I'll come to this. The blocked funds will be invested in US money market by the subsidiary, earning 4% free of taxes per year. Now you see this? This is what I was saying. 70% bhej raha hai, baki 30% they are saying it will be invested somewhere at 4%. Okay. Determine the feasibility of having a subsidiary in US, assuming no tax liability in India on earnings received by the parent company from the subsidiary. Okay. How many years is the project going to be? 5 years. So that means you are going to have year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Your primary cash flow will be in dollars, on which you will apply some exchange rate. You will get the cash flows in rupees, which you will discount at 12%, and you should get the discounted cash flow in rupees. Finally, this is our objective. Now, how much will be the cash flow? We'll have to calculate, right? So let's do something. Let's put this as working note 1. And let's working note 1. कैसे calculate करें? Sales से, right? So sales, how many units? 5 million units, right? 5 million into what is the selling price per unit? $10. So that's $50 million less variable cost. 5 million into 2.5, 12.5. Then forget contribution. Why do we need contribution? Fixed cost. Sales minus variable cost दिखा नहीं कि बस contribution चिपका दिया. चलो minus fixed cost. How much? 3 million. Okay. Anything else on cost? Depreciation. How much is the depreciation? What is the fixed cost? The initial project cost is expected to be 40 million. No, working capital is 4. So 40 divided by 5. Depreciation 40 divided by 5. That is 8. Yes, so 8 million. And this will give us EBT. How much? 26.5. 26.5 less. Taxes how much? So how much is this? 10.6. $10.6 million. 15 point. This is EAT plus depreciation 8, 23.9 million. Okay. This is your cash flow after tax, right? But then you can't put this above because you're only bringing in 70% every year. Now, let's split this into 2 parts. One is 70%. How much is that? 23? 70% of 23.9 is 16.73. Okay. Now, this is 30% is now we come to the concept of withholding tax. What is your understanding of withholding tax? TDS. Understand, it's not like that. Withholding tax is actually a tax on remittances. That is, when you remit the profits out of the country, that time there will be a tax imposed on you. And that is called as withholding tax. Okay. It is a tax which is over and above the income tax. It's a tax which is over and above the income tax. So, for example, if there is a company, let's say, which is earning $100 in US, and in income tax in US is 30%, $70. Now, as long as the company keeps that $70 in US only, nothing is going to happen. But the moment the company tries to get that $70 into India, the US government will say we'll impose a withholding tax of 10%. Right? Now, therefore, it's very important to understand withholding tax is a tax on remittances. It is not, it's over and above income tax. Okay. Now, in this case, and it is on remittances of income, not remittances of capital. Meaning, you invested 100 rupees on which you earned $30. sorry, you, let's say you invested $1,000, earned $100, right? On which you paid $30 as tax, you had $70. And then when you try to bring that to India, they will say withholding tax is 10%, 7, you'll be able to bring 63. Now, technically, you will be able to bring 1,000 of your capital, no? That also you might want to bring. But remember, there is no withholding tax on this 1,000. Withholding tax is only on income, because the moment you put a tax on capital investment, no one would come to invest in your country, no, because they know they will invest 1,000 and they will get back only 900, right? And taxes are always on income, never on the capital you invested, right? So withholding tax is applicable whenever you try to remit the income out of the country. Okay? Okay. Now, wait. Here, every year, you will try to remit out 16.73. Now, this is an income. So, therefore, withholding tax of how much? 10%. Okay. Now, another piece of information. Like in SFM, in FM, we just calculate 10% of 16.73. But in real life, withholding tax is calculated as 10 upon 110. Because 16 withholding tax is applicable on whatever you remit. But what you remit is going to be after the withholding tax. So in real life, it is calculated as 10 by 110, just like you would calculate the dividend distribution tax. Right? But FMA, we don't get into that funda. We just say was 10%. वैसे भी FM में when we calculate tax, we take 30% of PAT, you know. But in real life, is it 30% of PAT? No, no. How do you calculate PGB? Income, net profit as per P&L, add, less, falana, digna, ये सब करते हो, फिर जाके tax भरते हो ना. It's not 30% of PAT, right? Because यहाँ पे depreciation. In FM, the depreciation, अब जैसा यहाँ पे depreciation we consider straight line. Income tax, so block of asset बोलेगा, right? So in FM, we don't get into that deep as to, you know, ये income tax के हिसाब से कैसे calculate होता है. So withholding tax 10%, which means 1.67. That means your cash flow every year is 15.06, right? Now, wait. ये 06 है 07 है क्या? ये 15.06 है ना? Right? So far, so good. But now, fifth year, there will be some problem, because understand this 7.17 of every year which you retain there, it is going to be invested at 4%. That means the amount of first year will be 7.17 into 1.04 raised to the power 4, right? Amount of second year 7.17, 1.043. Third year 7.17 into 1.04 whole square. Fourth year 7.17 into 1.04. One, and then of the fifth year you will have just that 7.17. So can you just tell me these individual amounts, please? कितना आएगा फर्स्ट का? 8.72. दो डेसिमल ले लो. 8.72. Okay. किसका? इसका? Yeah, is this right? क्या रे भाई, मेरे को एक बस हेलो, आई जस्ट नीड अ सिंपल कैलकुलेशन यार. फोर्थ ईयर इज 7.46. क्या कैलकुलेट करके दे रहे हो यार? ए भाई, या तो तू कैलकुलेट चेक कर या फिर क्लास 7-8 का तू लेक्चर्स अटेंड कर. ये क्या चल रहा है? ये कितना है बताओ? फॉर द सेकेंड ईयर, फर्स्ट ईयर 8 पॉइंट. ओके, सेकेंड ईयर 8.07. थर्ड ईयर 7 पॉइंट. यार आप लोग सेकेंड ईयर का कर रहे हो, थर्ड ईयर का वो जो भी फिगर है उसको जस्ट डिवाइड बाय 1.4 कर दो ना. बार बार वो वापस 3 क्यों कर रहे हो? जस्ट कीप डिवाइडिंग ईच नंबर बाय 1.04. ओके, फोर्थ ईयर 7.46. ओके, टोटल from here 8.396. Total Sonal says 38 point. Okay. Which means at the end of fifth year, right, you will be repatriating fifth year ka 15.06 plus this 38.84. But then remember, this 38.84 comprises of your earnings and earnings on earnings, because this 7.17 is what? Earnings. It was part of your profit and interest on that earnings, which means this 38.84 is purely your kamai, और कमाई आप लेके जा रहे हो, less withholding tax 10%, 3.88. How much will you get back? 34.96. Which means your cash flow at the end of fifth year will be 15.06 plus 34.96 plus the working capital which is being released, $4 million. 4. 54.03. Okay. Now, exchange rate. See, again, exchange rate में ये working note 2, exchange rate. Okay. Now, what is the spot rate given in the new book? 1 rupee equals to 0.0208. Okay, dollars. And what is appreciating or depreciating? Rupee depreciates. Right. So here the quote is of a rupee and the depreciation is of a rupee. In those textbook where the quote is of $1 and the depreciation given is of a rupee, please convert the dollar quote into a rupee quote. You will arrive at this and then calculate. So rate for 1 year will be 1 rupee equals to 0.0208 minus 3%. 02? Okay. For 2 years, 1 rupee equals to 0.0202. Repunch the figures, minus 3%. 0.0182. Repunch the figure. 0.0202 को वापस कैलकुलेटर में दबा के माइनस 3% करो. 0.01. Okay. 3 year, 1 rupee. Repunch 0.0196 minus 3%. 0.0190. 4 years, 1 rupee equals to 0.0190 minus 3%. 01? And 5th year, 1 rupee is equals to 0.0184 minus 3%. ये इतना डॉलर्स है. अभी आपको एक्सचेंज रेट मिल गया, कैश फ्लोज इन रुपीज मिलेगा, पीवीआईएफ एट 12%, डिस्काउंटेड कैश फ्लो, एंड दिस विल गिव अस द प्रेजेंट वैल्यू ऑफ कैश फ्लोज लेस initial cash outflow. How much is the initial cash outflow? $44 million at spot rate, no? 1 rupee equals to 0.0208. 1 rupee equals to 0.0208 dollars will give you some figure. This should give us the NPV. जो भी है, चलो अभी कहां से, एक मिनट, लेट मी जस्ट बताओ, फ्रॉम वेयर डू यू वांट मी टू, आई मीन यू हैव टू वर्क इट आउट. पहले ये तो कर लो ना, ये टेबल, कंप्लीट द टेबल, नो? ऑल द डेटा इज देयर. Is withholding tax similar to DDT? Yes, you can, Tanmay, you can. I mean, in a sense, you can say that. DDT is also a tax on distribution of income, right? तो वैसे ही withholding tax is on remittances of income. हाँ, अभी DDT बंद हो गया है. Mihika says NPV is 0.5171. Mihika, let someone else. NPV. So what is the PV? एक minute. Sonal, this is what Sonal you're giving me is NPV. अरे बाप रे. एक minute. Mihika says NPV is 0.919. एक मिनट ऑनलाइन सब लोग अपना आंसर देना तो because I mean I'm working on the presumption that this cash flow NPV stuff is something that I will not have to solve and you can solve it. Everyone give me the answer. Manish says 1969.55 is the NPV. Sonal says 1969.14. Vishwa says 1969.52. Okay. 52. 55. Bhakti says 46. Okay. Mika says 1969. Okay. This is NPV, right? NPV, people are saying 1969 point something. Or depending on your whatever you have rounded it off. Okay, किसी का 52 आया है. Sujita 1967 seems to be a little off. एक मिनट. $1968.7. एक कैलसी तुम है 1969 is right. एक मिनट, let me just हाँ दो हाँ एक मिनट. पूछा कैसे है वो पूछा रखा किसने 15.06 divided by 0.0202 is 745.54. $768.37. Sorry, 15.06 divided by 0.0190, 792.63. 15.06 divided by 0.0184 is 818.48. 54.03 divided by 0.0178 is 3035.39. Okay, 1 divided by 1.12 equals to 0.89 29.7972. थैंक यू रे, कौन रखा? थैंक यू बोलूँ 7118.6355 इक्वल्स टू 0.5674। ठीक है। अब इसके बाद तो आप लोग देखो किधर वेरिएशन आ रहा है बस। अब इससे ज्यादा तो मैं नहीं सॉल्व कर पाऊंगा। हाँ एक मिनट नीचे का दिखाता हूँ पहले। ये अभी भी लोग थोड़ा बहुत इधर उधर वेरिएशन कर रहे हैं। आई डोंट नो किस में हो रहा है, क्योंकि मैंने ये फ्रीज किया है, ये फ्रीज किया है, ये फ्रीज किया है। कैन वी कीप पीवीआईएफ इन 3 डेसिमल्स? विराज मैंने पहले भी बोला है, फाइनल लेवल पे पीवीआईएफ ऑलवेज 4 डेसिमल्स, अनलेस पीवीआईएफ का डेटा क्वेश्चन में ही दिया है और वो लोग 2 डेसिमल में दिया है, 3 डेसिमल में दिया है, अदरवाइज 4। अभी मुझे नहीं पता बाकी का वेरिएशन क्यों आ रहा है, बस मेरे हिसाब से तो ये होना चाहिए बस। ठीक है, चलो अभी। अच्छा एक मिनट, इसका भी लिख ही लेते हैं ना। 44 डिवाइडेड बाई 0.020। सॉरी यार, ये कैंसिल। हाँ, 44 डिवाइडेड बाई 0.0208। दिस इज 2115.38। ठीक है, अब इतना भी कर दिया। एनीवेज चलो, ये अभी वर्किंग। सुजीता, वेयर इज योर मिस्टेक? क्योंकि आप योर डिविएशन इज स्लाइटली हायर देन अदर्स। वेयर वाज योर मिस्टेक? टू 3 डेसिमल्स। ओके, ये इंटर का बीमारी है 3 डेसिमल्स। बाकी एवरीवन इज ओके। 196। एग्जाम में डिस्काउंटिंग सेंटर कितना कंपनी See, if the cash flow is uniform, then you can use the PVIF method. वो कर सकते। और थोड़ा नीचे कर लो। Here you can say this is repatriation and this is retention. क्या हुआ? स्क्रॉल कर रहे हैं? पक्का? हाँ। Online, anyone wants me to scroll up, down, let me know. Huh? Can you please show the table once? एक मिनट निधि, 1 minute. ये रहा table once. Just let me know if you're done. Done? Okay. Sure. एक मिनट हो गया लिख के सबका? अच्छा ये फिर आज तो कुछ और कर ही नहीं पाएंगे। जिसका लिख के हो गया, you can log out if you want, because I don't think we'll be able to do any more problems today. Thank you. Bye, Swami. Bye, Viraj. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Vivek. Thank you, Vivek. God bless. God bless. Why me? चलो, everyone's done writing. Anyone? हो गया ना सबका? Can I log out online? Can I log out? Everyone's done writing. है ना? चलो. Bye. All of you take care.